We're here at ARC World Forum in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to present Greg Gorbach, Vice President, Collaborative Manufacturing at ARC Advisory Group.
Today we're talking with Paul Boris, Global Vice President of Enterprise Operations Management with SAP. And we're going to be speaking about the impact of innovative technologies on manufacturing operations. Hello, Paul.
Greg, good to talk with you.
So, if you take a look at manufacturing industries broadly, what are the major industries you'd say they're facing, and what prevents them from achieving operational excellence throughout the supply chain?
So I think the biggest issues really come down to people still function in silos, whether that's a data silo. More so now we're seeing process or operational silos. And the information and the process not being able to cut across the entire business or the entire value chain causes a lot of problems in how companies try to extract value or take extra cost out of that, and then it kind of manifests itself in their agility, their real-time activities, their data analytics, those sorts of things as well.
So what kind of foundational technologies or components would you say that companies need to be able to deal with this?
We've lined up our 5 fundamental areas, typically along those lines. So there's applications involved with it, analytics, there's some sort of mobility, our model around on-demand, on-device, on-premise with orchestration that really speaks to having a kind of a hybrid cloud on-premise approach, as well as database and technology. And what we're really trying to provide is if we can link these processes together, we can skim across that to drive real-time analytics to really drive the business process, deliver the workspace to an individual where they are, mobile device, and then speed that whole process up, the in-memory analytics. What you end up with is, for example, being able to take engineering information and deliver it to the hands of the operator in real time about the assets they're working on, and then maybe wrapping that in a 3D view that gives them a much richer experience, much more data that's less distracting and more consistent with what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. That's a very compelling view. How close are we to actually implementing it?
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, the impediments from my perspective are more around organizations that have a vision for driving that. The technology all exists. We just acquired a company called Right Hemisphere. We've got in-memory and analytics platforms that are deployed, and there's huge uptake in the market. And we're actually seeing customers that are taking advantage of different fundamental pieces of this, but they've put together a strategy that really goes across the whole value chain. So folks like Varian Medical, where they want to tie their manufacturing operations all the way out into the field and field service. Mm-hmm. You know, if you read any of the information from Harley-Davidson these days and kind of the Morningstar reports and how their stock is perceived, they're getting very high grades for their manufacturing transformation. And the key to me is the CEO is quoted as saying that they asked him, are you going to stuff more product into the supply chain? And his answer was, no, we're going to dial the process up and down. I'm paraphrasing now. You're now talking about a whole organization that functions more like a integrated machine than parts and pieces.
Mm-hmm. Well, you touched on some technologies like embedded analytics and in-memory technologies. Are there any others that you also think can have a big impact here?
For us, it really comes in the delivery, the content that's delivered, and the speed of delivery. So we've really got a great legacy around that platform and that business suite set of applications that helps you run the business. Now it's being able to simplify the consumption of all that great information that you have. So that's the mobility piece. So you'll see the iPad and working on things for Android and the different platforms, iPhone. Again, speeding that up. So we've got some discussion about how we're moving our entire business suite onto this in-memory platform, and that's where decisions and data are run through in seconds, literally sub 1 minute, where processes people would say might take them minutes or even hours and days in some cases. Mm-hmm. And then I think this visual enterprise piece is a huge opportunity, because it's not just kind of a single use case. It impacts design, it impacts engineering, it impacts the operator, it impacts maintenance, sales, aftermarket. I mean, there are areas across the entire enterprise where this can be used really effectively. And I think it's pretty exciting what's coming, and we're converging very quickly to deliver first use applications to customers.
What role do social technologies play in operation innovation?
I think the concept of people bringing their own device and just micro blogs and discussions. If you look at most operations, everybody's headcount is thinning out, and fundamentally what that means is we're either losing a lot of the knowledge base, there's an aging workforce issue, or we're spacing those people a lot further apart. They're not having a conversation about how things might run better and how to tweak and tune things. So you've got to be able to use the technology to fill the gap. And the social technologies, I mean, with the younger generations that are coming into operations and coming into companies, they expect it, and the older ones can leverage them because of the simplicity, but really get some value out of using it as a way to share knowledge and best practice.
Okay, good. So what do you envision as the next generation of innovation for manufacturing industries?
I can see where we start to look at manufacturing operations as nodes in a connected network. So if we can take the friction out of the movement of data, and when we turn it into information, apply a business context to it, the process now creates a lot of friction that manifests itself in indirect labor and non-productive activities. But if you could envision, and I've talked with some business leaders about it and some different companies, machine tools that are distributed around the country, tens or hundreds of thousands of them, have idle time that could be consumed. Different processes can be plugged or unplugged from the supply chain, and what that gives you is an incredibly agile supply chain. It should help drive sustainability and green initiatives, because we're maybe moving the production closer to where it gets consumed. I think it definitely impacts use of resources, but then it's also going to have an impact on labor. I mean, we have to look at how people are impacted by really having less labor required to do the things we used to do.
Very good. Well, thank you, Paul. We've been speaking with Paul Boris from SAP, and thank you again.
Thanks, Greg.